Welcome back, Billiken fans and fellow message board morons. It's Zach Miller and Peter Hale. It's the Midtown Madness Podcast. Before we get going, thank you so much for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Do it for season 4 because it's season 4. And once again, the Midtown Madness Podcast is brought to you by Two Men and a Garden. Pete, I told you last week that I consume a ton of internet content, way more than I like to admit. And I can't believe some of the ridiculous sponsorships out there. No useless subscription services then send you a new piece of bathroom decoration every week. No, not here. We're only about Two Men in a Garden salsa. It's local. It tastes amazing. And they've got all the flavors to suit your individual salsa preferences. You can pick up their many products at any local grocery store or online at twomeninthegarden.com. And if I'm being honest, if you've got particular tastes, you want to hit them up online. Follow them on social media at Two Men Salsa on Instagram and Twitter. Billiken fans, welcome back to the Midtown Madness Podcast. Our most recurring guest, truly my all-time favorite guest, and head coach of your 5-time Atlantic 10 champion St. Louis University women's soccer team, Katie Shields. Katie, you guys haven't not won the A10 championship since I've been podcasting. That's ridiculous.
You better keep podcasting, man. Zach, I mean,
I know.
You're
I
in.
know. Welcome back. How are you doing? How's everything going?
I'm doing great. We've closed the book on preseason, ready to get after the non-conference part of the regular season. So feeling good, feeling excited.
You talk about closing the book, and now I feel bad for asking you because I'm going to ask you, as of the release of this show, it's been 275 days since the first round NCAA tournament game versus Memphis. Not that I was counting or anything, but I'm curious what you took from that game and how it shaped your plan for the offseason and this season.
Yeah, obviously, this season ended a lot earlier than any of us internally or externally expected or wanted. And so I think we had to get some distance from it first because it was tough. It was a tough way to send that group of seniors out. It was a tough way to end a season at home with a ton of expectation internally and externally. But once we got some distance and maybe a little more analytical eye towards it, it really has helped. I think we recognized there were pieces of the game and sophistication that we needed to layer in the spring. One example is we scored one goal last year on an inside shooting range free kick at Xavier. It was kind of a gift from bad goalkeeping. And we had chances against Memphis because they really took away the space behind us, and we didn't have solutions for that. And so we spent a lot of time this spring really trying to, improve not only the personnel we're using in those moments, but also just a collective mentality. And so it definitely, you learn a lot more from failure and loss. It's also fuel, right? It's definitely fuel to the fire. We also learned a little bit, and this is, again, a long answer. I apologize to start out this way, but we learned a lot about our team is that when we got away from the game and we're in our spring, we were meeting with our leadership and we actually asked them, what are the most memorable moments from the fall of 22? And you guys know that team went 20-2. They won championships. A lot of people would be thrilled. Top 10 ranking, all of this first in program history, a lot of it. And they said the loss to Notre Dame and the loss to Memphis. And we kind of looked at each other as a staff and we're like, oh, we're missing something here. And so it also helped frame, the focus on the journey and the joy and the daily process, and maybe less on what that final spot. And I think if we focus more there, we're actually going to end up higher up the mountain. But it really, I mean, obviously I'm still carrying it with me and all our returners are, but I think it's helped us prepare for this fall.
So I guess like a pro, you just tee up my next question beautifully. So obviously, as you said, your staff and the team expect nothing less than to win every game. But given that it's been 5 years of NCAA tournaments, it really did feel like that season was the first year that the program had bigger expectations heading into the tournament externally, as you mentioned. How do you manage that disappointment, with the players specifically, and anything specifically to look at on a macro level recruiting? I know you talked a little bit about the journey to push past that plateau.
Yeah, I don't think it's a plateau,
That's for lack of a
I
better word.
killing me
Come on.
there.
I know, I'm
You
sorry.
know,
But I really was, I grabbed my thesaurus out and I could not find a better adjective.
it's
Or
I think part of the reason we had that expectation is the fall of 21, we broke through, get to the round of 32, and then the the fall of 22 team, I mean, they didn't put a step out of line all year. I mean, they were as good as can be. Obviously losing to Notre Dame was a little bit of a blemish, but they were a 1 seed and we're a 2 seed. And so I think, we've absolutely continued to like elevate. We ran into, and I will also give Memphis a lot of credit, and the committee no credit, because we ran into a team that was very much in form. It was you got to beat the best, to be the best. But it was probably more of a worthy of a second round or even a third round matchup, just talent wise. And so, I mean, Memphis went on to go to the Sweet 16 and lose in PKs to Arkansas. So, we're not hanging our heads. I think this team is just hungry and back for more.
So once again, your team brings back a ton of players. It feels like that's been the story every season, and I think that's a testament to how the program's been built. But who of the returners have you really challenged to make a leap in terms of their impact that you want them to bring to the team this year?
Yeah, I think we challenge them all in their own way. So it's hard to put your finger, on one in particular. I think I'm excited. It's not so much a challenge. I'm really excited for Hannah Larson this fall. Our goal is a healthy year, a healthy season, because she's yet to have a complete healthy Billiken season. And that, we've been very thoughtful and mindful about her preparation and her loads. But when she's on the field and in form, there's nobody who can play with her. And then you combine that with Caroline Kelly, with Emily Gaby, and I think there's more maturity to their attacking and their sophistication. And then I think an exciting addition so far has been, Julia Simon she's barely 12 months out from surgery. So she's not, I would say, 90 minutes fit. We're very much managing her time right now, but she's something special when she's out there. And then, I clearly work mostly with the attacking players because that's the first ones out of my mouth. But, we've got that core back in the back line, and we were the third best defense in the nation last year. They are on a mission to be the top. And so, again, it's not one player in particular. I think it's just that a bit more from everybody. And then we've got a really good group of newcomers that are going to add something to us too.
now you're just answering my questions before I ask them, because my next question was obviously going to be Julia Simon. How is she doing? I mean, it was just a brutal way to start last season, and tough to watch her kind of hang out on the sideline with the brace.
What's so cool about Julia is she didn't waste the year. And what I mean by that is she actually garnered so much respect and so much love in the program for the way she connected with her teammates and built them up. And, I think as a transfer, come in, get hurt, who's a pretty highly touted player, it's easy to slink into yourself and feel sorry for yourself. And she did none of that. I mean, she actually, AirPod. We give out a core value award at the end of the year, and she won the one for one, which is kind of that connector human. And so anyway, so she did not waste a minute of her time injured. But she's something special when we have the ball. I mean, she creates, she finds the ball, she catches everything that's thrown at her. She's got some work to do on the defending side of the ball. She knows that too. But I think she gives us, something special in that attacking mid when she's out there. And the cool thing too is Jess Preußer, who we didn't think would be back, is back, is in the best form we've ever seen her in as well, also playing that attacking mid. So we've got ourselves some good options there.
So I want to circle back on Larson for a second, and specifically the beep test. I want to know what is that? How is it scored? How does it work?
Oh, you
Because
don't
I
want to
think
know, Peter.
I think she just set a program record in that, if I'm not mistaken.
She did. She broke her own record, just to be clear. Like her own program record, she
Yeah.
broke. It's so there's a variety of beep tests out there, right? I mean, you can find a bunch of different ones. There's different ways they're scored. We run the Nike Spark one. It's the same one it's not the greatest reference right now, but the same one our like women's national team and US soccer uses.
Oof.
Probably the most common. I know it's probably the most common one though, especially in the women's game. And it's just it's a 20-minute run. It's out and back. You get 10 seconds recovery between every run, and the pace obviously gets faster and faster. You get one miss a second time, you're done. And so Hannah ran 61 and that's a pretty quick tempo. Our standard to be able to play in a game in our program is 40, which is actually very high. It's like a very elite level. And so Larson's running 1.5 of that. It's pretty remarkable. The standard she sets on day one, and just the ceiling that she is breaking through for our program.
Pete, I'm imagining content right now.
You work on that, Zach.
I'm going after, and I was going to put you through it.
I think maybe 6.1 would be my ceiling.
I mean, it's not pleasant. We had a male practice player actually this spring who did it with us one day, and he got to 40, but he was like, I never want to do that again.
No, maybe 20 years ago I would have tried, but no.
Yeah, I think if you're around the soccer program, the beep test is the annual torture that everybody fears. But no, it's how far off was her last record from the next
60? So she was 60 and she just ran to 61.
So not who, but what was the next one down?
Oh, the next person, Katie.
Yeah.
So Katie Howe ran a 50. So she's 11 plus the next closest person.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no question, like you see her get the ball and she immediately like kind of pops. Like if you're watching on screen, she immediately pops. Like her speed is it looks different out there, there's no question about that. I'm curious. So you've got some newcomers, you've got freshmen, you've got transfers. Are there any of them you think will make that kind of immediate impact this season?
I do. I mean, I think Izzy Lubert, our transfer from Arkansas, we've started her the first 2 exhibitions. It's not to say she's won that job because it's very competitive with a couple others, but she's given us really good stability and good soccer, good athleticism at the left back. So excited about her. I think the freshmen, we're already seeing they're talented, right? But they're figuring it out as they go. Some of them, and some are coming from injuries. Some are a little, come in, got a little sickness in the first week or so. But I think Jordan Gary's done well for herself so far. But I think there's definitely others as the season grows that are going to grow into really significant roles for sure.
You mentioned Jordan Gary, and I had to do a double take at the Lindenwood game. I see the curly, floppy ponytail, short midfielder running across the field, and I was like, no,
it can't be.
That is not. I was like, whew. I was like, hold on for a minute. I thought we had another returner.
I wish. I miss her. But what's cool about Jordan is she actually has some of that personality too. So it's kind of, I'm not saying it's Bree 2.0, but there's definitely some similarities.
Is that the slew version of the number 10? Is floppy?
That personality,
floppy,
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess.
No. Does she know what shoe she has to fill with that look?
Yeah, Jordan beats to her own drum. She's not too consumed with everybody else. So I think obviously we talk about Bree's legacy, but it's also important that everybody is their own leader, because you cannot be Bree, you cannot be any of them that they have come before. And in fact, I think there's more to offer from a variety in this current group.
Do you think that Bree Halverson's legacy is kind of that player who had that really tough injury, and the way she handled herself on the sideline. Do you think that contributed to what you saw out of Julia Simon?
Undoubtedly. And the wild thing is Julia never saw Bree hurt because she wasn't here yet when Bree had that. But what Bree that year did was she set a bar and a standard of this is what it looks like to be an injured player in our program. And then unfortunately, we have had it relived, and then Hannah Larson, I think, did it in her way magnificently in fall of 21. And it's absolutely Bree's legacy is wide, wide and deep. But I think that's a great, piece of what Bree left us. And like we continue to tell that story because how hard it is to be an injured player.
You
So
started. Oh, go ahead, Pete. Sorry, I'm sorry.
You're ranked number 13 in the new poll that just came out, number 21 United Soccer that came out last week. And I'm wondering how you approach the polls as it relates to like your team. Is it something you tell them to ignore the noise? Is it something like it's better to be unranked like last year because you can use that as like a motivator? Or what do you do with this kind of ranking?
Yeah, last year I printed them out and handed them out the day they came out because we were
Yeah,
nowhere to be found. And, those ended up hanging in a lot of lockers throughout the season as motivation. So you can't really then just totally ignore it on the next year. You're
right.
losing some consistency there. So we actually did give it to them. And the first one, not this most recent one, the coaches poll we gave them. And, there's a bit of a conversation, and it's how we even framed the approach of the season before any rankings came out was that you have this, belief of a champion. You belong, you've earned this respect and this recognition. This is not something that a team 5 years ago was going to have on them. But you, at the end of the day, like there still has to be a mentality of an underdog because that's what this program has found success in. And if we're being, if we're talking about the Blue Bloods, we are still an underdog, and that's the space we want to be in. And so we were sure to highlight ourselves, but we absolutely highlighted that BYU is ranked 13th in that first poll. That's a number of steps above us, and that's where we open. And then if you look at it also, we've got Xavier, we've got Brown, we've got Nebraska. They were all in that poll as well. So just sharing with them the company they've got to keep. And then we also remind them a lot of people don't remember this, but we started the fall of 21 nationally ranked after the COVID spring, and we lost the first two games for a lot of variety of reasons, but we lost them and we never returned to the polls. So take it for what it's worth, but we did talk about it. But I think the fact that we got to go on the road at BYU at altitude in front of a raucous crowd and they're ranked well above us, we shouldn't be too comfortable in our own skin right now.
Yeah.
I think about the motivation, and one of my takes on the U.S. women's national team is that if you have to get motivated at some point in the middle of the game, you don't have that. You don't have it. You don't have gold medal it. But like thinking about myself in the position of a player on your team, I would be full of my own shit. Like I would, I really would. How do you manage, where the team on a macro level versus maybe a player that might be motivated in different ways? Like, do you kind of know who that is? I mean, obviously you know who that is, but do you make a point to set them aside and kind of handle it in another way?
Yeah, because everybody's different, right? Like we have certain players who think they play a perfect game, and then we have others who think they play the most terrible game, and so it's a dance. And I would say, like, come sit in our film room and you won't think you're that awesome if you're watching, some of the clips we even showed post Lindenwood. The clips all show post Evansville. So there's a constant humility that I think this group will continue to share because there is so we have talent, but it's a very loose chemistry right now because we haven't played together enough to have that experience. And we're not a great team yet. I would say the fall of 22 team towards the end of the season, they were becoming a great team. We're not there. But then I think it's to your point, Zach, like knowing what each individual needs, and you can poke them, build them up, give them whatever they need in that moment. And I think that's something our staff is very, very thoughtful about. And if anything, we're going to err on the side of humility.
So you played that exhibition game at Lindenwood. I'm wondering, how did that come about, and how did it wind up being played out there as opposed to at SLU?
Yeah, Dave Musso, the Lindenwood head coach, is a really good friend of ours. We've known him for years. He helped us find one of our best GA's assistant coaches we ever had, Haley Markway. She played for him at Quincy, and so it's just we have a really good relationship, and think that he's going to do very well at Lindenwood over time. And that place is beautiful. I walk out there and I'm like, this is four-sided, beautiful video board, pretty new turf, really wide for a football. Usually football field turf's really narrow. That one's insanely wide. And so for us, like, there was an open, we're not too big for our britches. Like, we can go play at Lindenwood. It's as long as it's a good surface against a respected opponent, I'm happy to go play there.
Were the locker rooms as nice as that football stadium? That stadium, I was shocked at how nice that is, but it is gorgeous. Yes. Yeah. That like I don't know what even to call it, but like just the fact that it was built inward and just the hills and they can build right. It's just unbelievable.
I mean, I walk out, I'm like, I could sell this thing, like in recruiting. And like I said, I think Dave will do well over time there, and his staff. We were in the football visiting locker room, so I'm sure the home side is a little nicer than what we were in.
But the facilities are I mean, it is just as nice. Like it's nice.
It's nice. Yeah. It's nice. It's not Herman Stadium, but it's nice.
No, not well. I mean, you just built a unbelievable locker room. Speaking of which, how excited are you for the Champion Center?
Oh my gosh. I actually got to go in there. Janet took us through there yesterday. We had a recruit in town, and took us in, and it's unbelievable. I mean, you get excited about drawings, and like, hearing, but like once you see it, and it's obviously still got a little bit to go. But I just think I'm so excited for our athletes and our women, selfishly, right? That they have a place to eat and to be together, and like they can do everything in that one space. And I think it'll be just for SLU athletes, like a place to actually be together, because they don't really have that until now. So I think and just like for all teams, I mean, we have an amazing facility now, soccer, but like I think about like our swim team and our field hockey team, like how cool it is for those athletes too.
What's that conversation like? You've got a recruit and you're walking through the Champion Center. What are you highlighting the most?
It depends on the individual, right? Like what's important to them or their parents, their family. I think the coolest thing about whether we like it or not, facilities like that, facilities like the Billiken Soccer Legacy Center, they just like, they tell you, we care about you. Like, we care about women's soccer. Look at this, and we can tell you all we want how much we care, but it's like physical representation. And then I think the things we highlight the most are like the place to eat together. Like that to me is special. And then I think the other place will be the student success area, from an academic, because a lot of our athletes, like, they are high academics, so they want to know, what does that support look like for them.
Right. So getting to the regular season, I'm wondering about like kind of how the schedule worked out, because you start heading out to Utah. You're going to play, as you said already, number 13 BYU, and then Utah State. How do you prepare for that? Not just because you're playing a ranked opponent on the road, but given the fact that you're traveling pretty far, you're playing at altitude. I mean, what other kind of considerations do you have going into the regular season this year?
Yeah, we're throwing them into the fire.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful though, because Chris May, we schedule almost 2 years out, just how women's soccer works. And so a couple of years ago, he really started pushing on me and our staff to say, like, okay, we want to be, an elite, a top 25 consistent program. Like, let's go play these teams, right, that are in the national, because not Notre Dame, BYU was in the national final in 2020. And so, let's go play them. Let's go experience what that feels like to play at a place that draws top 5 in the country. And so there's a handful. We have a few coming down in the next few years, and we just reached out to a couple that made sense, that were Final Four teams. And it's also a bonus. Like, it's a cool place to go, right? To Utah,
Oh
and
my
spend,
God, yeah.
spend 5 days. We'll go up Friday to Park City, we got family hosting us and stuff. So, and the other cool thing, the timing didn't work out right, but Matt and Summers, who was in our team fall of 21, she's on her mission. She's Mormon, and she's on her mission right now in Mexico City. So we were actually intending for her to be with us when we went to BYU, but got a calling, a little, different timing. And so her family's actually going to host us Wednesday night when we get in. So you get a little bit of that, getting to go somewhere where we have a player from. But yeah, the other nice thing is we're doing it before school starts. We tried to do it so they're not missing class, because that's a stressor. And Utah State is no slouch either. It's going to be a very tough weekend. And
Yeah.
so to test our team right away on the road, see what we got, again, at altitude, I think will be a challenge. So, but the good news is we came in fit. So I think we're ready for it.
Yeah.
I'm incredibly jealous of this Utah trip. I've been wanting to go check out like Evans, all that area for a little bit now. So that's really freaking cool. And you steal my questions, because I'm gonna ask you what you guys are doing, and then you just go ahead and tell me what you're doing. And I mean, I appreciate you making my job easy, but like, come on. Looking further down the schedule though, you have the bronze boot doubleheader. By the way, are we calling it the bronze boot on the women's side? What are we doing? What are we
not.
doing? What are we gonna do?
It's just the SLU women versus SIUE.
Okay, we're not gonna make it a thing. All right.
It's not a bronze boot. I don't know.
We're not making it a thing. All right, fine. But anyway, it's at City Park. We had heard that it was supposed to be a done deal for the men last season. It fell through. When did the opportunity present itself to make it a doubleheader with you guys?
Yeah, we actually, last season we were in the same kind of conversation with the men, not timing. It did not fit at all in our schedule last fall, in when they were even talking. So we just said, nope, like, can't do it, pretty early. And then as it got reinvigorated for this fall, we always play SAUE, and the timing was, it's not ideal, because we do play Thursday. We usually play Thursday, Sunday. We're going one day less rest, but so is SIUE for the women. And it was just one of those. It's a really cool opportunity so many of our women go to city games, and to play in a world-class stadium. It was, as long as the date fit us, we were going to jump on that opportunity.
So what does it mean for them to play there? I mean, you say they go to games there and everything. I mean, have you gotten a sense of like how excited they are to actually play there?
I think they're I don't think they'll know till they're there, right? I think probably the day before we get to walk, do like a walkthrough, you'll get the wow factor. But there are, we'll see. It could feel pretty empty, right? So you don't, even if it's a decent crowd. And so I think it'll be, again, it's a great experience. I think we do have women who want to be pros, so to get to play in a professional stadium is a cool experience we're able to give them here. And I mean, SIUE, they've been in the NCAA tournament the last 3 years. Obviously we've been, and so I think it's a good matchup to have there.
How long have you been here at Sandwich University now?
Okay. This is season 11 as a head coach, but 12 because I spent my first year as an assistant here.
And this will be the first season that you will play an Ivy League school?
It is. Yeah.
How did it take this long?
Well, we travel so much for the league that I'm not really interested in traveling again back east, right? Like, I want to go. BYU makes sense because you're going somewhere new, but like,
I want to go to Hawaii. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Tillett and them, they're going Thanksgiving. Yeah, the Ivy, and it actually, we had no intention of the Brown game. We had a double booking. We lost a game. It was supposed to be a return to Iowa. It was really not a good series of events, to be honest. And then we were scrambling. and Brown had put out that they had that date, and ironically, so had Harvard. Both had the date available, looking for a game. They are both very good teams. Brown's won the Ivy the last couple of years, but Harvard actually had a better RPI last year. But they're both top 20 kind of RPIs. And just full transparency, just the Brown was willing to play us Wednesday. There was a financial incentive going to Brown that didn't exist at Harvard. So, there is no sentiment to this game. It was very strategic. It is to grab RPI points. It is, and it's going to be, we're going to have our hands full because they're a very good team.
So you weren't willing to stretch for Harvard or anything like that. It was just pure, like, let's do what's best for
business,
us.
what's best for the Billikens.
Right.
Yeah. We're actually flying into Boston, in all ironies, for it to drive down. But yeah, it's what's best for us. And, I think it'll be a really challenging game, but excited to play it.
I look at this schedule and, Creighton, Kansas City, Xavier. I mean, you put together a really tough schedule. Is there any of these teams, obviously Nebraska's receiving votes, Brown's receiving vote. I mean, is there any reprieve here, or is it just, solid team after solid team?
Yeah, it's a grind. I'm nervous about it, right? Because it is such a, last year I felt like we had a little bit like a reach and then a reprieve, a reach and a reprieve. And we have a little bit more now in our program. So, I think it's the, a reach and not really a reprieve at all. But I think, again, where we want to be, where we think we have the talent to be, it's the kind of schedule we should be playing.
So then what are you expecting from the A10 this year? Given the strength of your non-conference schedule, do you have a sense of like where the conference is going to be this year competitively?
It was really good last year.
Yeah.
I can't say it was great because we only got one team in, right? But like the women in the A10 women's soccer, and I shared, like, I didn't know this was shared with me by our administration, but like women's soccer was the best performing sport for an A10 like program, essentially. So like where RPIs, like where we were in comparison to other leagues, women's soccer performed the best among any sport in the A10. So, men's soccer is kind of a wild one because they're big, they're big, and you don't have as much of the Power Five in it, but women's soccer actually was the best. So I think that's really positive. I think both VCU and Dayton with top 50 wins would have absolutely been at large contenders. I don't think we did Dayton any favors in the final with the scoreline, but I think that those two for sure will be back. I think UMass has gotten better in the portal in the offseason. They'll be good. Loyola Chicago, I think they were just getting their A10 legs year one, but they will be better this year than an 8 seed. So I'm hopeful this is the year we get more than one, but not at the expense of us being the AQ.
Yeah. Do you feel like, and I know this is maybe a weird thing to ask, but do you feel like the way your program has performed over the last 5 or so years has pulled the rest of the league up, like kind of forced them to, I don't know, go
Tough
a little
questions.
harder?
I love it.
I'm dropping AirPods. Hold on.
Oh, she's stalling. She's stalling. This is a stall tactic.
I wouldn't say it's like we've pulled everybody up. I think there's probably been more investment in some ways, maybe looking at some things we've done. Obviously the facility, like that. If I am sitting at any other school and I see that building built, I'm like, hello, like we got to keep up. So I do think there's those factors. I will say, I think some people recruiting wise are now, I've heard from youth coaches, like some of the other A10 schools will ask, will this kid help me beat SLU? And so there is some of that out there, but trust me, as we recruit, we think, would we care if we had to play against her? And if the answer is yes, then that tells us something. If the answer is no, then it also tells us something. So I wouldn't say we're just Dayton. When I first got to the league was the top dog, and they were the team everybody was chasing, and they made everyone better, and now it's flipped and it's us. And so I just think we're kind of the one out front right now.
Katie, once again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Always fun catching up. And yeah, I mean, I think Peter and I have been counting down the days for fall sports for a couple months now. So very excited for the season to get going. And anything out you want to say to Billiken fans? I don't know.
No, just appreciate you guys, your faithful like following of our women. And yeah, just like the celebration you have for us, like women's soccer, right? Mostly it's places football, basketball, but like what you guys do give us a platform, and even all the other like Olympic sports. I know we all appreciate it.
Yeah, I won't tell you that we just do it based on winning. So
I understand.
I mean, uh, yeah, no. So super excited. I mean, fall sports are they're hot right now. Like you've got,
Volleyball is going to be good. Andrea's going to get it done. She's for real.
Yeah, you gotta remind her that she's gotta be on the show at 8 o'clock this time next Sunday.
She's a young one. She's got like hours beyond 8 for her. She's good.
Did you know we went to school together? I don't know if you,
it makes sense. Similar timing. No, she's a star.
Peter, we're back for season 4.
Season 4. Who thought we'd get renewed?
I think our next guest thought we would get renewed. Actually, I could think of no better way to start season 4 of a podcast that centers around Billiken basketball by interviewing the head women's soccer coach, and that's what we're gonna do right now. I don't even know what to say anymore after we interview Katie Shields, because it's just it's fun.
Yeah, she's great. And I mean, I don't know how, if you're listening to us, especially if you've been there since the beginning with us, I don't know by now why anyone wouldn't be following that team closely, because they're a joy to watch. They keep getting better. And you could just hear like they're in really good hands. They're going to stay strong for a while. I'm a little nervous, Zach. I mean, like she reminded us a couple seasons ago, they started 0-2. They've got a tough road trip to start this season.
I love this though. Like, I love the attitude. First of all, I want to say that like my favorite thing about Katie Shields is that she'll sit there and like almost red-faced, embarrassed of the success, but like she's a stone cold killer.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's always there.
The funniest shit ever.
It kind of reminds me. It's a little bit like Kevin Lish, right? Like he has that. Like there with Lish, it's a little different, but he has that kind of natural tendency toward humility, but at the same time cannot hide how truly competitive he is. Like it's always that undercurrent there. And some of the stuff he said was like, whoa. She kind of, I think she has that duality a little bit in her.
I absolutely adore it. Thank you again to Katie Shields for popping in on the show and chatting with us. I know she's got a lot of things going on heading into soccer season. But first, we got to talk a little men's basketball. And I think we need to take a moment to talk about the passing of former Billiken Ramon Trice, Pete.
Yeah, we do. Unfortunately, he passed away just a few days ago at the age of 57. Way too young. He was a standout player for Vashon's 1983 team that won a Class 4A state championship in Missouri, and then he came to SLU for 2 seasons. As always, Zach, we rely on Joel Hall to kind of be the historian, and he put together a really nice thread actually, memorializing Trice.
Yeah, he did. Also, I wanted to point out that I'll get to the nicknames of the 2 Vashon stars from that team, but I'll let you kind of go down that road, because you are as much as Joel Hall is the MMP Billiken basketball historian. I'll let you go ahead and recruiting and everything, and
yeah, and then I'll let you finish with the nicknames.
You're the buttoned up guy on the show. I'm the
so this was a Coach Floyd Irons team, 1983 when they won the title, the year I was born. Fun fact, but So I didn't know this. Coach Irons actually loved that backcourt, along with Antonio Campbell. He liked them so much that he named his son Antonio Ramon. So getting both of their names into his own son's name, and he goes by Tony, but that's pretty incredible. I didn't realize that. So Ramon Trice played a year at Fresno State and then played for Dana Altman actually at Moberly area JUCO. And his backcourt mate there was NBA Hall of Famer Mitch Richmond, which is pretty incredible backcourt actually. And then Trice came back to St. Louis, played for SLU for 2 years. He was mostly a reserve, but he had some big games here and there. He was probably his best skill was his shooting. Joel says his junior year against Butler, he came off the bench to lead SLU to victory with 21 points, going 7 for 7 from 3, which to this day remains an all-time SLU record for perfect shooting behind the arc. 7 for 7. Kind of incredible that nobody's done that since then.
This feels like one big setup for Gibson Jimerson to go 8 for 8 this year.
I can think of no better way to honor his memory. His senior year, he got Grauer. He got the point guard role under Coach Grauer, which really kind of made them more of an up and down team. And he was ultimately benched in favor of Charles Newberry, who we've talked about a lot, just coincidentally recently, who went on to become one of our best point guards of all time. But he still had his moments here and there. A lot of people in the Billikens.com thread about him remembered his game against 20th ranked Memphis State at the time, and he had really become kind of a defensive specialist and really helped shut down their backcourt at that time. So he finished his career. He averaged about 4 points a game, shooting about 40% overall and 34% from deep. Remember, the 3-point line was pretty much brand new at the time, or at least just a few seasons old. And then he went on to coach right after that season as the head men's basketball coach at Harris Stowe, just 21 years old, fresh out of school. And Joel goes on to kind of put a personal touch on it, saying that Trice was always friendly to him, when he was just a 8-9-year-old kid hanging out with the team. And Zach, I know you more than anyone can attest to how much that means. But just seems like a really nice guy, gracious dude. And even when he was benched in favor of other players, never really got that big time role that he wanted. Maybe was not correctly positioned as a point guard, more of a maybe a slightly undersized shooting guard. He still was a good dude who did what it took to help his team win. And he's always been active in the local St. Louis basketball community. Always kind of buzzing around his Vashon program, which has been a powerhouse, as everybody knows, over the years. So, again, 57 is really young. He seems like a great guy, and it's just a shame to lose him, Zach, because Billiken for life.
Yeah, I saw that they nicknamed the backcourt pistol and shotgun, which would just absolutely not fly in any way, shape, or form. Especially in a high school team.
In a high school, and given the state of affairs in St. Louis City in the 1980s too, man. I mean, that's
dark, man.
It would not. You're right. It would not be. People would not find that as funny today. But really, the nicknames are because those dudes could really score, and that they did. But rest in peace, Ramon Trice. You will be missed.
Yeah, it's tough when we would go back to Justin Love, and it is the tougher moments. Obviously, it pales in comparison to what his family goes through, obviously, but it's tough to break or talk about news involving the passing of players we saw and have heard stories about, and so thank you to Joel Hall for putting that Twitter thread together. He does really fantastic historical work. I really think he is, just as much as I like to get that audio video recording of the history, he does a great job at aggregating and searching for that history and bringing it to light. And I think that's a super important thing that I would tell Joel he should really start cataloging it on like a website. I think for sure. So it doesn't get lost when X decides to just fail completely finally. It's been dying for like 15 weeks now. Like
for sure.
It's just every other week it's like, oh yeah, it's dead now. X is done, and then you're like, it lasts for like another 3 years. Pete, we did get a commitment, so we do have some good news.
We did, and given some of the recruiting, for the current cycle, I guess I should say, given some of the recruiting stuff we've talked about over the summer, mostly centering around one player, who we're not going to talk about him anymore.
Who?
We're just not.
Who?
We're just not. We're not going to say his name again.
Mike? Who? No.
But
Malcolm,
positionally speaking, this is kind of the opposite, because that dude was a center, and here we've got a guard. His name is Mike Meadows. He's a new commit. He's a grad transfer from Portland. Actually, he started out at Eastern Washington. He played there for his first 2 seasons. He actually redshirted his freshman season, I think, with injury, and then transferred to Portland. And then after graduating from Portland, he commits to Loyola Marymount on March 29th, decommits. And it's funny because SLU was recruiting him in the spring, after he announced his intent to grad transfer from Portland. So this was a name that we were familiar with all the way back in March. Committed to Loyola Marymount on the 29th of March, decommitted on April 17th, committed to Cal 2 weeks later, withdrew from Cal on August 6th, and a few days later, SLU gets commitment. So been a really busy year for him. I don't know the whole story behind Loyola Marymount and what was going on there, but I think with Cal, it's probably the fact that things have kind of fallen apart there. They've got a new coach, who he would have committed to at the time. And granted, the Pac-12's, dissolving into nothing is not really going to impact him this season. It would be next season. But maybe he just kind of saw the writing on the wall there and didn't like the state of the program and thought, if I've got 1 year to play, I don't want it to be necessarily with a first-year coach in a program in a conference that has just fallen apart. So I can't imagine that's a recipe for much winning. You want to get that tournament, which he almost got at Eastern Washington. His redshirt freshman year had COVID not happened. So, if you want a shot to win a few more games, I don't think Cal's the place to go. Especially given what happened there last year and what's going on around the program right now. So I don't know what happened at Loyola Marymount. Regardless, he gives us, Zach, that veteran combo guard that we had kind of been talking about before. 11 points a game, 2.7 rebounds a game, 2.2 assists per game. He shot about 46% from the field, about 36% from 3. He does have the ability to really heat up. Had 39 in a game against Santa Clara, 29 against Loyola Marymount. So look, he's a guy, he's going to be a technically 6th-year player. He's moved around a lot. He's dealt with some injuries, but you're not going to get a 0-risk commitment this late in the game. And even if somebody, a lot of people are probably thinking we'll get somebody to fill a center position in case, our one center who's not a freshman is not eligible this year, given that he's a 2-time transfer. And we're talking about Ezewiro there. Maybe they're thinking we shore up that position, but we do have size, even though they're young. We were also really young in the backcourt, and so I think you could have gone either direction with it, and they chose to fill the last spot with a combo guard.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I'm really happy we went with a point guard.
Yeah, I think so. As much as I like Medley, and I really do think he's going to be competing for a starting job, or at least a 6th man, like right off the bench. Not necessarily point guard by committee, but I think he's going to be our point guard sooner than later. As much as I think that's true, there is something to be said about, like, if he and Hughes are our ball handlers, you want to have something there, right? Like, a couple of years ago, we've got DeAndre Jones coming in as a 5th year from Central Arkansas. I think this guy's a little bit better version of that. I think he's a little bit bigger. I think he plays at a little bit higher level. I think that's kind of what we're looking at here. And instead of having to get whatever minutes, Yuri's on the bench or playing alongside him in a small backcourt, I think here it's more of like this guy, a 6-year veteran, alongside those 2 guys who are essentially both first year, even though Hughes played last year. first year guys who are really going to be in the rotation, right? I think that's a nice place to be.
Yeah, I think really it's, just kind of what this team, needed. It's a, like you said, experience, scoring, a point guard that's proven and experienced, and somebody that can, a calming presence, hopefully, among a roster that's all of a sudden really young.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to want I mean, turnovers is naturally something I'm going to be worried about. I think as much as I like some of Hughes's potential, he's not a natural point guard. He's long, he's lean. I think we saw last year he doesn't necessarily quite look the point of a point or part of a point guard yet. Medley really does. I think he's more natural at the position. But again, freshman making that leap, like turnovers are going to be an issue. Having a guy there who's way more veteran. Yeah, you're right. Calming presence is kind of what it's all about, right? I mean, like we don't really know what we have in this team yet. And here's a guy who plays about 30 minutes a game and turns it over barely one time a game. I just think his experience and that the steady hand is what we need.
So he's really that veteran guard, that veteran presence, but he also seems to have a little bit of a tendency to go off too, kind of Isabel-ish numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned those games where, he went off against Santa Clara the one time. He went off against Loyola Marymount. So, I mean, I guess you could argue that's a guy who's maybe a little inconsistent. But when you look at the rest of his games, I don't think that's necessarily the case. He's pretty steady, and he's also not one of these guys who, like Isabel could be sometimes, or like some other players we've seen who they're really attempting a lot of threes, and some nights they're going to hit 5 and sometimes they're going to hit 0 or 1. He's a lot more steady there too in terms of his attempts. And the other thing he does is he gets to the free throw line and knocks it down. He was 78% this past season. He shoots about, three free throws a game on average. 78%. He was 91% the year before. So he definitely has that free throw shooting. And given the fact that we've got all those young bigs, I think we're going to be giving up some points at the free throw line again this season. And so it's nice to have somebody again who's steady and experienced and solid with that.
You mentioned the young bigs, and I'm kind of moving away from Mike Meadows a little bit, but being out and about down at St. Louis University, down at the women's soccer game or the men's soccer game, there was quite a bit of talk about Mr. Bruce Zhang.
Everybody's saying he looks good.
Hey, I'm not saying, but I'm saying I kind of, I think, I mean, everybody's saying that he is massive.
He is, and we had talked about this in a trivia question months ago after he first committed. He's our first player over 7 feet since Bryce Hushak, I think. And
underrated college hoops 2K7 player.
Very good golfer too. But he in real life. But he's got a broader frame, like, right? He's a lot thicker. I mean, like he just he looks, you're right, he looks really big. When he dunks, it looks effortless, like he's on his tiptoes and just kind of tucking it in there, right? It's but then he's got that nice touch on his jumper too. I'm really intrigued by him.
I've heard his passing is borderline, like, I don't want to use the E word, but his passing is very, very good.
Okay.
People are going to be very, like, which is something that we have sorely been missing, passing out of the post.
And this, as much as we talk about Meadows and how he helps this team and everything he does, I still am kind of looking at this season without the burden of expectations, right? Like last season, I'm like, I think we're a tournament team, but what kind of tournament team are we? And then only to like fall flat.
No, we said we know we're a tournament team. Let's not hedge our bets.
Is this the team that wins too?
Yes, that was real. I mean, for real.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I totally, I bought the hype. I looked at it. I believed it all. And then this year it's a little bit freeing to kind of look at a roster and be like, I know who a few of these guys are, I kind of looked at all of them as recruits, like more or less kind of know what they do. How does it all come together? Who's as good as I think, who's better, who's not as good. I'm just excited to kind of see them play. I just want to see them play.
Yeah, I think with that, Bruce, I think it's going to give our guards much more. There are going to be more places from which they can receive the ball. Right.
Mm,
You can have Bruce down in the low post. You can have him face up. You can put him out on the elbow and have him pivot there. Have players run off of him.
yeah.
So I mean, I truly, if he can defend, I think he's ready. And I think he's going to play a major role on this team.
Well, somebody has to, and
Yes.
by the day, I'm more and more worried about Brad Azawiro getting the transfer. Just given how many other players we're hearing already, not just, I mean, basketball's starting to come in, but football, 2-time transfers are getting denied left and right. It's again, I mean, like, it's a topic for another day, but the NCAA showing no mettle, showing no power to stop all of the very cynical conference shakeups, doing nothing to slow that down, which is very much coming at the expense of students, but then turning around and denying those exact same students when they're trying to transfer a second time. I don't, we've already had some cases of guys who haven't played in 2 years, of people who have dealt with really tough circumstances getting denied. And I can't say I have a whole lot of faith in it. I hope it happens. I hope we do have a guy who's a junior and not a freshman, but I'm not counting on it. So if it's not Bruce, it's got to be somebody.
I think in a lot of ways, the NCAA is just trying to just be like, hey, can we just get all these stragglers out? Can we just get them out of college? Let's move back to we have 4 years. Let's be done with this.
Yeah, I can.
And it's going to be an 8-year lag time, right? Or
No, I mean, kind of, but I mean, really, it's what we've got 2 more seasons. We'll and every year there's more and more that work their way out of the system, right? But if 2020 2021 was the year, then yeah, we've got this season and one more, I think, before everybody's gone. But after this year, there won't be many left, because those would have had to be freshmen. So there's not that many left after this year. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I can definitely see how you'd be getting a little impatient with those. But those really aren't the guys who are the issue, right? Because most of them are by this point grad transfers. It's the other 2-year transfers who are the issue. 2-time transfers.
I don't think we realized the kicking the can down the road that was the bonus year.
Well, I kind of, following recruiting early on, I kind of knew it was going to be a thing, just because it was all of a sudden, I didn't know what class anybody was, like our existing players. You could make a case for any of them to be called at the time, sophomores or juniors, or freshmen or sophomores. It was really unclear, and it was a case by case basis, really, what a guy ended up being, right? But yeah, you're right. Definitely something that we were going to be dealing with for a whole 5 years, and we've still got a little bit left to go.
Pete, we got into it a little bit with oh wait, no, sorry, I skipped over something. We have a bracket, Pete, and it's the Myrtle Beach Invitational.
We do, Zach, and it's November 16th, 17th, and 19th, which is important. They do skip that I guess football Saturday, because ESPN is responsible for organizing these things. But the Myrtle Beach Invitational bracket is unveiled, and SLU's going to play Wyoming in the first round, and then either Charleston or Vermont in the second game. And then on the other side of the bracket, we're going to get a third game. Whether that's the first, third, fifth, or seventh place game, we don't know, but it'll either be against Wichita State, Coastal Carolina, Furman, or Liberty. In terms of Wyoming, they were 9-22 last season. They finished dead last in the Mountain West with a record of 4-14. Good conference, but they had a key injury. Graham Ike, who we actually recruited out of high school. I know he went to school out in Colorado. he was out for the season with an injury, and then now he has transferred to Gonzaga, of course, adding insult to injury, quite literally. Charleston and Vermont, meanwhile, those were both tournament teams, both the best teams in their conferences. Both teams lost a lot to graduation, but they still should be kind of in the mix for first place in their conferences again. Vermont is perennially the best team in the NEC. And then Charleston now looks like a real power in the Coastal, which is the rebranded Colonial Athletic Association. So pretty interesting second round game, whoever we end up with. I would hope that we're going to beat Wyoming. I think they have a really good freshman class. But I don't know. I was looking kind of at their roster and who's coming back, and a couple of transfers, a good freshman class, but we're going to be playing them early. And even though we have a lot of newcomers too, I think we've got a little more firepower than they do. So if we can get through that one, it's going to be a really good game in round 2.
Pete, if we're in the 7th place game, we may not have a show anymore.
I mean, if we stumble against Wyoming, because when you look at it, I mean, stumble against Wyoming, and that's what's going to be it, right? Because Vermont or Charleston, we could very well be the underdog in that game.
Yeah.
Charleston won 31 games last year, and like I said, Vermont's always good. So yeah, it's a tougher field than people realize because it doesn't have a power conference headliner, right?
Yeah.
And I think these are all teams that give SLU a really good litmus test. So I'm fascinated to see how that event unfolds. I really am.
I mean, dude, like like you said, I really don't have any expectation. I have hope. I have no expectation.
Yeah. No,
unfortunate.
I agree.
It's unfortunate.
Any chance you go down to Myrtle Beach for this one?
0 chance. And it's not even because of anything. Like I just don't think I will. I think I'm going to focus on hopefully a weekend Chicago game.
Yeah.
That would be ideal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would love to, if anybody wants to sponsor that trip out there, the comment section down below or DM me. I would love that.
It's a tricky one because of that Sunday final too. After it starts on a Thursday and then finishes up on a Sunday.
I mean, I work from home Mondays anyway, so it wouldn't be too major of a turnaround. But yeah.
But you've got a whole day in Myrtle Beach to kill.
God forbid.
It's in November. Yeah, that's tough.
Women's soccer, we got into it a bit with Katie Shields, but we're just gonna do as best we can to recap these games, because I'm not gonna lie, it is very difficult to for me to keep track of who's on the field at what time and who's scoring during exhibition games, and I'm there. I'm just the worst at it. The Billikens beat Lindenwood 4-0 Tuesday the 8th at Lindenwood. All goals came in the first half. And as we talked about it, Pete, with Katie, Lindenwood Stadium is awesome.
It looked really nice from your post. Like she said, it's a 4-side stadium, which is pretty meaningful in college soccer, where a lot of times you're just getting 1 or 2 sets of bleachers. It's boxed in on all 4 sides. I did read that it is maybe a little bit in the flight path of the airport, planes coming in from the west, flying low over St. Charles and then coming into Lambert there. But other than that,
that's how they got the sweet deal on the land.
That's right. It looked like a really nice atmosphere, though. You had a nice sunset over that place too.
Yeah, I could see myself hitting up a Lindenwood football game this fall. I mean, it had never crossed my mind to even go out there, but it's nice. And I gotta tell you, SLU's got to do something. Lindenwood's making moves.
Well, and we've talked about this a lot vis-a-vis the baseball facilities, right? Because we're seeing Lindenwood, Maryville, a lot of the local up and coming non-SLU schools are doing a lot better with some of those facilities. But it looks like a really nice place, and not just football, Zach, but both men's and women's soccer are head coached by former men's and women's soccer assistants, as we learned from Coach Shields, because you've got Chris Birch on the men's side. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of SLU ties out there right
There's
now.
a blueprint clearly that
Yeah.
teams are following. I mean, like Shield said, I mean, she said that they're out there, the rumor is that people are recruiting to, will this person help us beat SLU? And
Yes.
that's a target.
Yeah, for sure. And Lindenwood has the benefit. I mean, they're a new D1 program.
Yeah.
They're in SLU's backyard, and it's a fertile backyard, right? I mean, there's a lot of talent that comes out of this area.
Lindenwood has a good pedigree for soccer.
They do.
I mean, they're not great, but like you look at Dado Hamzagic. I think he played at SLU for a hot minute. He started at Lindenwood.
Mm-hmm.
On the women's side, they've had, decent teams, as like St. Louis is a huge soccer market. So, I mean, Lindenwood's got a base.
Yeah.
They just, they got to have the right coaches installed and the right culture. And I mean, they won't be bad for long.
Well, and they're in the same conference as SIUE. And as Coach Shields said, SIUE has taken that conference the last 3 years to play in the NCAA tournament. I could really see the two teams who kind of bookend the St. Louis Metro, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being the two teams who are always vying for the top of the Ohio Valley. Like that seems very reasonable to me, because with Lindenwood, you have that facility in addition to being like, hey, you can stay home and play in the same metro in your hometown metro area. You can easily go home on weekends if you need to. Your parents can come see all your games. In addition to playing at, as Shields said, a facility that you could very much sell as a head coach. That's a pretty nice pitch to me. If I'm not a SLU level recruit, but I'm a notch or two lower, and I'm thinking about places at kind of that maybe Missouri Valley, Ohio Valley, level. I don't know. That seems like a pretty decent sell to me.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I could find fault with over at Lindenwood was the fence was covered with, like, it looked like that how like the tarp with like the logos and stuff on it. It just looked like it had been there a few years. So a couple of St. Louis winners, St. Charles winners. Second exhibition game, SLU beats Evansville 5-0 Saturday the 12th at 6 p.m. Billiken's once again clinical in their dismantling of Evansville. I know Shields said she had some things that she didn't like in the game, but hey, you win 5-0 versus Evansville and get ready to head to Utah.
It's 9-0 in the 2 exhibition games, and she was not thrilled with their performance. I think that means your program's in a pretty good place. I think that means there's a pretty high standard. I'm glad she said they're as fit as they've ever been, in terms of their fitness and health right now, heading out to Utah, because that's a really tough way to start the season. I really wish, Zach, that they played Utah State first and then BYU. BYU being the number 13 team that she said was in the national final, 3-4 years ago. I think that might be a good way to, like, kind of, I don't know, make sure you're acclimated to the altitude and some of the factors they're going to be dealing with out there. I'm a person who is sensitive to altitude, as I found out 8 years ago while hiking in the Grand Tetons. Hey, I would always think or say that about someone if they were like motion or altitude, or until all of a sudden you're just like having a normal hike and you're kind of like, I feel weird, like something's weird, and it's not like, had nothing to do with like the shape I was in or anything like that. It was just kind of like all of a sudden my head started feeling different. And so that altitude is no joke. I mean, as someone who experiences that. So anyway, they are definitely in better shape than I've ever been in my entire life, and they're half my age. So I'm not necessarily worried about them in that regard, but it's just a different feeling, right? They play in the humid Midwest, not all that high above sea level. It's a big difference when you add several thousand feet of altitude, thin air, dry air. Just a much different experience. And these are good teams. So to start against number 13, I know she said Utah State's no slouch, but it's still a much different level when you get down into the triple digits in RPI. which they use in women's soccer. So anyway, I kind of wish the games were in reverse order, but regardless, tough test to start the season.
Yep, that's Thursday the 17th at number 13 BYU. That game will be on ESPN Plus, and then they play Sunday the 20th at Utah State, and that will be on the Mountain West Network, whether that's digital or streaming. Well, I have no idea, but it's out there. You can download it on whatever device you prefer. I think it's super easy. I think when was the last? I think I just deleted the Mountain West too, off my Fire Stick to get some space. But yeah, it's super easy. I think it was. I don't even think I had to log in last time we had to deal with a Mountain West team.
Nice.
On the men's side, they finished their first exhibition game against Notre Dame Sunday the 13th at Herman. It was a 2-1 loss. The thing about this game is the Billikens felt in decent control early in that first half, but a Notre Dame goal against the run of play seemed to really put the Billikens out of sorts. Notre Dame got on the board first, as I said, absorbing the Billikens' high press and playing out of it. You could almost feel the goal coming once they crossed half field, and a shot deflected off the back of the Billiken into the net, and there's your 1-0 lead. The lone Billiken goal and equalizing goal was scored on a connection between our two A10 transfers as Galen Flynn put in a beautiful cross to Roble, who got his head on it and into the back of the net. The Irish, though, got the lead back for good on a goal that really looked very similar to the Billikens equalizer. Man, the Irish just looked in control after they scored that first goal. Billikens, it kind of, you remember, I don't remember if it was like early last year or the year before. Again, this seems to be kind of a thing we see every year with this men's soccer team, where when they look out of sorts, they look really out of sorts.
Yeah, I think we did see that a decent amount early last year as well. But look, I mean, that's why these games are here, and luckily they've got 3 of them, to kind of get some of this stuff in order before the regular season starts.
Yeah, just one of those things where not everybody's not moving together, and you're pressing, and when you're not rotating, there are guys open, and they're gonna move the ball up the field and dice you up. So that's kind of what happened. Think watching City when City gives up a goal off their high press. That's what the goal looked like, that first goal. What's now up next for the Billikens, Pete?
So Wednesday the 16th, they've got their second exhibition against St. Louis Community College, and then Saturday the 19th they host UIC in their third and final exhibition game. All of those are at Herman.
We also hoping to have Coach Kalish on the show. We're looking at the 27th. Just have to try to cross some T's and dot some I's on that one. So keep an eye out again for that. Volleyball, Pete. It's almost here. We've been waiting.
It's almost here, and it's exhibition season. Saturday the 19th, they're going to take on SIU Carbondale. It sounded like Coach Shields had good things to say about Coach Beatty. Thinks they're going to be good right away.
Yeah, I think I don't know if they're going to be good right away.
Yeah.
I know that Beatty is really, we'll let her talk about it in her own words, but I think this year is definitely going to be a bit of a transition year. A lot of things to like. I know there's some players they're excited about, but we're going to have her on the show, on our show app, dropping on the 21st. So really excited to have her come and talk about how things have gone. So yeah, that'll be a fun one. Keep an eye out for that as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and like we've talked about before about their schedule, they're on the road basically their entire non-conference season. I feel bad for any of them that have class on Friday, because they're just not gonna see that class very often. But they're gonna be battle tested by the time the A10 comes around.
Like me on a Friday class, except I didn't have a road trip.
I see. Thursday was my issue after Humphreys.
Oh, well,
if I had an earlier class on a Thursday, that could be a problem.
Man, now I'm thinking about that hungover chicken strips and fries with a massive Dr. Pepper. Anyway, Let's talk. Well, field hockey played their exhibition versus Iowa. I don't have a final score there, but sounds like they were beaten handily. Iowa's a very good field hockey
Yes.
program.
Yeah, one of the best.
What I can tell you is they played 4 full quarters, an overtime, and a shootout, no matter what. So just to get in the practice there. But yeah, they will open up the season. If I can pull it up here.
Friday the 25th
Oh,
at Bellarmine.
There we go.
And then they got
no,
their home.
no, they got, oh no, the exhibitions. They have 2 more exhibitions coming up.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
No,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you're
Sorry.
fine.
I was looking at the regular season.
Yeah, my fault. I said it wrong.
They've got Friday the 25th at Bellarmine to start the season, and then the home opener is the 27th against Bryant out at Sportport. But what are the exhibitions they still have?
Yeah, they're gonna head to Ball State for a Friday noon showdown with in Muncie, Indiana on the 18th. And then the 21st they'll play Maryville in an exhibition. I believe this will be the first time. Oh no, they played them last year, but they will play them in an exhibition this year. They played them regular season last. So we'll see how they progress this year. Hopefully the 5 wins was their total from last year. Hopefully they can squeeze out 6 in the schedule.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully with a little program continuity, they've got the right mix this season. I know they do have 19 players coming back. So they've got Josephina Perez, Olivia Smith, Shea Dry. All 3 of them were 3 of their best scorers last year. Actually, 9 of the 10 players who scored goals at all last year are back. So yeah, I'd like to think they can improve on last season.
Yeah, I do too, because you look back at their schedule and a 2-0 loss at Central Michigan, 2-1 loss in Iowa City against Boston, a 2-1 loss to Ball State here in St. Louis, a 3-2 overtime loss at Bryant in Rhode Island. So I mean, I think it's one of those things where you just don't have winners.
Yeah,
like you have to get over that hump. And I'm not saying these girls have never won or they're not competitors. What I'm saying is, as a program, you don't know how to win yet. Like you have to learn how to win. Like,
yeah,
there's a hump you have to get over where you start. I'm trying to say this without sounding insulting.
No, I understand completely what you mean. I mean, sometimes there really is like that recruiting class, right? That has a player or two who can kind of change the culture from within, and it takes time. And they lost a good goaltender from last season to graduation. I think that's probably their biggest loss coming into this year. But there's no reason, like, you rattle off some of their closer games right there. There's no reason a couple of those can't turn. And maybe you inch closer to 500 and just build and build and build from there. But hopefully they're finding the right people to make that happen.
I certainly could see this team, honestly, if things break right. I mean, you could see this team 4-0 going into Colgate.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, Bellarmine, Bryant, Towson, Lindenwood are not, they're fine. They're on our level. That's the point. They're on our level. Go, and again, Colgate is, you never know what to get from an East Coast team. They could be amazing. They could be not. I mean, last year, I believe they played Colgate. They did not. But anyway, yeah. I mean, I see a world where this team does beat 5 games.
I'm looking at Towson. They were a 5-game winner last year, so that's a pretty even match, despite that being an East Coast team. Bellarmine down in Louisville was 4-15 last year. So you're right.
We beat them last year.
Yeah. So you are starting with a bunch of teams that essentially are in your peer group in terms of wins and losses.
Pete, when I asked you to start this podcast or do this podcast with me, did you think we'd be analyzing a field hockey schedule?
No, I didn't. I really didn't. But hey, the unpredictability of it all is what makes it so worthwhile.
It's so bizarre how fun this gets fun. I hope people understand that it is fun to follow the field hockey. It's hard because they're not on streaming or anything like that. But if you have not given Billiken soccer, Billiken baseball, Billiken softball, if you haven't given it a chance yet, and you are a Billiken basketball fan, this season's might be rough in Billiken basketball world. Embrace this fall.
Yeah. I say this too as a parent of young kids who's always like, look, there's just a lot of things I don't get to do anymore, right? Because I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. And if you told me there's an inexpensive way to get my kids outside, get them out of the house, and then kind of do something that I'm somewhat interested in at the same time, it's like to the other people out there in my situation, who are young parents, it's like, take them to a soccer game, take them to a volleyball, take them to a field hockey game, let them run around. Like it's those things, Zach, which I think your childhood was largely defined by going to a lot of SLU games, right? Like these are inexpensive, low pressure, and quite frankly, fun ways to spend a couple hours with the kids. And yeah, you might have to buy them snacks here and there, but like the ticket price is low. You can sit wherever you want. You got space to move around. To me, that's a lot easier when I try and take my kids to like, a crowded Major League Baseball game or something. It's a little bit tougher. The ticket price is higher. Everything costs a lot more money. I wish that I had that local access to SLU sports so I could make a lot more soccer games, take my son who plays soccer, take my daughter who's about to play soccer for the first time, out there. I honestly think it's a nice way to spend an evening or an afternoon, if you do have kids. So I would say think about it. And if our show serves no other purpose to people, then to kind of get them more curious about some of these other sports, then I would say it's still been a success.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, by the way, I want to manifest that the athletic department build up that like grassy knoll area on the opposite end of the locker rooms for soccer. Because like you said, like you bring out kids to these games and you can move around. I mean, but like you have, the bleachers where it's fine. Like kids can move around and be free or whatever on the bleach, but like having a grassy area, like a lawn seating would be perfect.
Yeah.
Like the outfield at the Little League World Series or the, or that grassy area at the end of Lindenwood Football Stadium, because apparently I'm obsessed with Lindenwood Football Stadium.
Next show, you've got a Lindenwood football hoodie on.
I know. Well, that's going to do it for us. That's the week in Billiken Athletics. If you have not subscribed to us on all platforms, what are you doing? Go do that now. Like, share, subscribe. Please comment on our YouTube video. It really does. Just send our link. I'll challenge you. If you're still listening to this one, send our podcast to somebody who doesn't know about our podcast. Just do it. Just no context. Just be like, here's the link. No. Yeah. Thank you all to everybody who listens. And thank you for making season 4 possible, really. And of course, thank you again to Two Men in a Garden for also making season 4 possible. So
yeah,
Pete,
definitely.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.